welcome. My name is Paget. I talk about all things spirituality, manifestation, and energy. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that we can connect on YouTube. So this is actually a really juicy topic that not a lot of people fully understand on an energetic level, even if they are, let's say, applying it to their lives. And so there's a lot of information in this. You might want to get out your pen and paper. So the feminine frequency isn't just about waiting, and it's not just about being passive, even though it might physically look like that's kind of what's happening. It's not really what's actually happening. Like that's not the energy of passivity isn't actually what feminine power actually really is. So we're going to discuss what the empowered divine feminine frequency, especially when it comes to manifestation, what that actually looks like, what that actually is, how that actually represents at a deeper level, and how we also got so far away from it. Now, off the bat, I want you to just do this, I guess, diagnostic exercise for yourself. So I've noticed that a lot of, let's say, women who really gravitate toward, the feminine manifestation and all of these things, which is amazing. But the people who tend to naturally just gravitate toward that direction, it's a lot of the times actually because they need a little bit more of the masculine. They need a little bit more of that driving forward force, but that feels really uncomfortable. So then we turn to the feminine because that's actually what becomes our comfort zone. Or there are women out there who are actually really, really against anything kind of like feminine driven, who kind of like secretly sort of look down on the feminine frequency or the feminine way of doing things. And they often get very triggered, right, around when people talk about the feminine way of doing, and they roll their eyes and everything like that. And that's actually a really, really, really telltale sign that they actually need more of this feminine integration in their life. So I just want you to notice if you fall into either of these categories, because personally, I fell into both of these categories at different points in my journey. And it actually was important for me to understand that I was doing that so I understood like where the balance actually had to happen. So let's actually go back to even why there is a distorted relationship with the collective and the divine feminine power. So in the past, as you know, we had a denser consciousness, right? A consciousness that supported denser frequencies. Otherwise, you can also call this like the shadow aspects of self, right? So let's say the shadow aspects of masculinity, or what people would call toxic masculinity or hyper masculinity, and the shadow of the masculine, right? Which would be the fear and the control, force and the overbearing or overpowering over other people, or the suppression of the collective in order to lift oneself up. That was the shadow masculine, and that really became the norm of how to create success. And you saw that in business where it became really cutthroat. You pretty much saw it everywhere, right? When it came to success, it was almost synonymous with suppression. It was synonymous with control. It was synonymous with this hyper masculinity. And what happened with that is the feminine frequencies were suppressed as well. And this created a huge distortion of energy around the female power, or what the definition of the feminine actually is in its purest form. And we started associating the feminine or the suppressed energy with being weak, with being submissive, with being passive, with being not worthy. There was such a limited definition of what the feminine was because it was so distorted. And then we literally lost the meaning of the feminine itself. And this is why you see, even in pop culture, how the feminine, in order for the feminine to be powerful, they had to distort into the shadow aspects of the feminine. So for instance, the seductress, right? Manipulating men with her sensuality or sexuality in order to gain power and influence. Or the overpowering matriarch, the woman using manipulation type of tactics in order to gain power and in order to even dominate over the other women in their lives. Or the sweet manipulator, right? The woman who plays dumb, plays like the dumb role, trying to secretly manipulate men into doing certain things. And the thing is, those are facets of the feminine power, but obviously used in a distorted way. And it's also kind of twisted, right? It's a little bit dark. Now, what I am going to say is actually some of you could actually use some of this dark feminine feminine energy, or the integration of the dark feminine energy within yourself, which is something that we're going to be doing inside the Divine Feminine method. But some of you guys could actually use a little bit more of that integration. But at the highest levels of frequency, when it comes to the Divine Feminine or the awakened feminine, that's not even it, right? The dark feminine is not it. So then over time, what happened is, in order to skirt around this distorted relationship with the feminine and not really understanding or getting very confused about what the divine feminine frequency actually is, a lot of women end up becoming men or taking on energetically the identity of a man. And this is also where people say derogatory things about successful women, like they're just men, right, in a dress or something like that. Now, I don't obviously support people saying that, and there's obviously a huge level of sexism in there. But a lot of the times, energetically, it often actually is pretty true that a lot of successful women have taken on a masculine energetic identity in order to create success, because that was the only mechanism that they understood how to adopt that would lead to success. But then what happens, and what's actually going to continue to happen over time, especially over the next few years, is that it starts to feel really, really bad. It starts to feel really out of alignment. This is where women, they start to burn out. They get really overwhelmed, and they actually end up really hating their success. Or when they do manifest something, it feels really empty. It feels very meaningless, because they got their success not through the brilliance and the purity of essence of who they are and their divine, true feminine power, but through another identity that like literally is separate from them. And there is a difference between manifesting from your brilliance, from your worthiness, right? And that deep connection with your higher self, and manifesting with a separate identity that you create that's not really you, but you force yourself into because you think you need that in order to create success. And this is where women, a lot of successful women, they end up losing their vibrance. They end up losing that spark within. They end up losing that youthful kind of glow inside, and they feel almost kind of like a little bit like dead inside, like they've had to numb themselves so much in order to create that successful identity. Now, here's the thing. The reason why this is not really going to work anymore, or it's going to get a lot harder for this to work, like you're going to even need more willpower in order to make this whole paradigm work, is because as we elevate in consciousness, what's happening is the collective is being forced to purify, right? So anything that is not true, and I don't mean like good versus bad, but not true. So for instance, if you're a woman, right, and you've taken on a really hyper masculine identity that is not true to your unique blend of masculine and feminine, that is not true to who you actually are, that's going to have to go. Right? On some level, it's going to have to go. Otherwise, if it doesn't go, you're going to feel really off. You're going to feel very distorted. You're going to feel very out of alignment. And that's what's basically happening in the collective. That's where we're headed. So if people hang on to these other identities that are not them, right? It's just going to get harder and harder and harder. Now, what's really interesting is in this process, like what I am seeing and what I perceive is also going to be happening more and more, is that the universe is going to be like, hey, like we were trying to push you into a new paradigm, right? We're trying to purify you. We're actually trying to make you better. But people, they're not going to understand the process. And then what they do is, instead of like letting go of their old identity that the universe is actually trying to get them to shed, they try to grip on even tighter. Okay. So they try to control even more. They try to even use even more of their discipline. They try to like force it and push it even harder. And the thing is, it's going to feel worse and worse and worse over time, because again, you are building your success off of a version of you that's not really true to who you are, and not really true to your highest potential, because you don't realize that there is another paradigm that you can actually jump into, because there is a new way coming through. But what that does mean is, for people who are not necessarily ready for it, it's going to get harder and harder for them, right? So a lot of people are going to have a lot of identity crises. They're going to experience a lot of tower moments where everything seems like it's falling apart. Again, because it has to fall apart, right? If success or whatever it was built off of false identity or false energy, it has to fall apart. But again, a lot of people are not going to understand this process or understand what the process actually feels like or understand how to actually move through the process. So they're just going to have a pretty difficult time. And that's why you're going to see also a lot of mental health issues and things like that. Now, this new way is based in authenticity. It's based in originality. It's based in actually being your bold self. It's based in individuality. It's based in true expression, like fully being in your embodied power and fully standing in it, fully owning in it in a really authentic and unique and creative way that is unique just to you. And this is where you're going to be in your own perfect integration of the masculine and of the feminine energies. That's what makes us unique. We all have our own unique blend of masculine and feminine, and we do need both, right? This is not about saying, oh, we don't need the masculine. But for one person, integration is going to look one way. It's going to look, I don't know, it doesn't work this way, right? But let's just say 60% masculine and 40% feminine, right? For another person, that's 65% and 35%. Now, you'll only really know what that actual unique blend is the more and more you purify yourself, the more and more you release the energies and the identities that are not true to you. So the energies that we've inherited from our mother, the energies that we've inherited from our father, the energies that we've taken on from past lives. We need to clarify all of those things out of us in order for us to align into our unique expression. Now, the closest example that I can really come up with that really represents the divine feminine frequency is some of these mythical women out there. Like, for instance, Cleopatra. I don't mean Cleopatra in the movies or the way she's portrayed in media. She would be much closer to what the divine feminine actually is. She is powerful just in her presence. She's deserving and commanding just in her being. She's not afraid to speak her truth, and she's not afraid, by the way, to be seen in her power. There's also this powerful comfortability in her sexuality and sensuality. It's not too much, although maybe in the movies it's been portrayed that way, but it's just fully integrated, right? She's confident in it. She also allows other people to work for her. She's the leader. She holds the vision. It's just like, and we're going to be getting into this in the Divine Feminine Method, but the queen bee. Like, if you think about the queen bee, right? It's not like she's enslaving all these other bees to do the work for her. No, but she's setting this ultimate frequency, like this hive of frequency that the bees are just like literally plugging into, and they benefit from being a part of that frequency, right? And so they're not just working for her, they're working with this collective frequency that she just happens to represent, right? That she just happens to hold. So it's not even just about her per se, it's about the frequency that she is holding that they're able to plug into and they're able to benefit from. That's really the queen bee frequency. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen those images of like a queen bee got trapped in someone's car. I think this might have been in the UK. And I think for like either a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I forget, I don't know, probably a couple of days, like this whole hive of bees were like surrounding and following the car because they knew, because of what? Because of the frequency of the queen bee, exactly where the queen bee was. And it just so happened that she was trapped in this person's car. So these bees were just like, you know, like basically surrounding this car and just engulfing this car. But again, that's just proof, right? They're just plugged into this frequency. So they want to be plugged into the frequency. I mean, if they thought that they were being enslaved by the queen bee, it's like a perfect time. Okay, great. I no longer have to do anything for the queen bee. But it's like, no. We all benefit from this. Right? We all benefit from this. She's setting the frequency as the queen bee, and when we plug into it, we benefit, right? And this is how, when you are in the queen bee frequency, you actually serve, let's say, the collective, or you serve your family, or you serve your company, or you serve, you know, your business, just by sitting in that deserving frequency and setting the frequency of the company you work for, the company you own, your family, and then other people, when they join that frequency, they actually get something beyond just the exchange of money or whatever. They're actually getting a benefit at a frequency level because you're holding that frequency authority over the hive, if that makes sense. So this is what the Divine Feminine Method is going to be leading you to at an energetic frequency level. So you can come into this balance of the frequency of the feminine and the masculine yourself and understand how they work together when it comes to manifestation. So if you want to join us in this deep, expansive, sacred, amazing process, it is going to be unlike any other program that I have led before. I am so excited about that. I feel as though I have been working for the past 6 months energetically, personally, all the processes that I have been going through. If you guys, for those of you who have been in my world closely, you know the processes that I have been going through over the past 6 months. It's been very, very intense, but it really has been actually to lead me and to prepare me to actually lead this program. But I am telling you, after clearing so much garbage. So amazing how much lighter you feel on the other side, how much more confident, how much more comfortable in your skin you feel, how much more comfortable in your voice you feel, in your expression, in showing up for yourself. I have literally more available life force because I cleared out so much garbage to prepare for this. And this is going to be your shortcut through this whole transition. So if you're interested in joining us, you can sign up. The link will be in the description below. Now, what's super important for you to understand is that this is not about rejecting the masculine, not at all. This is about the proper integration of both. The feminine receives. It receives the opportunities, it receives the ideas, it receives the inspiration, the coincidences, the magic of the universe. The feminine creates the illogical jumps, but the masculine actually moves the vision forward. And it's incredibly important. In fact, without the masculine, it's incredibly hard to execute and actually make things happen. But of course, if you're just operating from the masculine, it's very linear, it's very, quote, difficult, everything feels extremely hard. But when you're integrating both of them together, it feels like this perfect dance, right? And actually both of them really, really complement each other, that they both support each other in exactly the right balance in order to create an optimal result. So I hope this makes sense when it comes to properly integrating the masculine frequencies and the feminine frequencies and why you actually want both in order to manifest. It's just the old way of doing things, even when it came to manifestation, is everything was so hard, right? Even visualizing, having to visualize or having to keep track of every single thought, that feels like that's more masculine. It feels pretty difficult, right? Having to visualize something perfectly over and over and over and over again actually takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort. It takes so much discipline. But when you come just from the masculine perspective, by the way, and this is really important as well, is that you actually limit, let's say, the illogical, right? Because the masculine has a very clear kind of vision in mind. It's driving things forward toward a direction, toward a goal. Again, very important. But here's the thing. The feminine receives intuition, receives the hits, receives the signals, receives the signs from the universe. You can actually make a left turn and all of a sudden your results could multiply out of nowhere very magically, right? In really unexpected ways. Whereas if you were just operating from the masculine, you're actually very closed off in, let's say the kind of results that you could get because you're not receptive to the illogical pathways that the universe actually might be wanting to send you or the signs that the universe is sending you. You're not open, you're not as receptive to taking the detour because you're so focused on just the forward momentum. Now, what's interesting is I didn't fully realize that I was actually unconsciously using both of these energies, right? When I first quantum jumped and then even subsequently, I didn't realize I was actually using both. I didn't realize that I was using the masculine in order to drive something forward, right? I got an opportunity, I would drive it forward, I would move it forward. But in order for me to have even gotten the opportunity, I needed to be in my feminine. I needed to be in that receptive mode. I needed to be in that surrendered mode. I needed to be in that detached mode of play and fun and creativity. So this is why I'm so excited, because this is what we're going to be exploring in the Divine Feminine Method. So I hope that you are going to be joining us for this sacred, and really powerful and really fun, by the way, journey. So guys, leave a comment below. What do you feel you need to integrate more of? Do you need to integrate more of the feminine energies, right? Of the receiving and the surrendering and the letting go? Or do you feel like you need to integrate more of the masculine energies of the being able to drive a vision forward and being able to take that action and being able to be really decisive? What do you think you need more of? Again, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, I will see you all later.